I'm going to show you in this video today how I get signatures and watermarks onto my artwork in Procreate using brushes. So I'm going to start by opening Procreate and starting a blank canvas. And I'm going to bring a signature that I already have made as a PNG into this. So I have it in my camera roll right now. I've saved it into my camera roll from another source. So I'm going to go in there and find it. Now remember, this method that I'm showing you requires your signature to be a PNG file. It has to be on a transparent background for this method to work. So there it is on my canvas. I want to make it the size of my canvas, so I go down here and click on these two little arrow things, and they make it fit the size of the canvas, because the bigger it is, the better detail I'm going to end up with in the end. In order to make the brush, I need the background to be black and the foreground to be white. So I go into my layers and create a new one. Now I go back to my transparent layer, click select, and it selected the signature itself. And now on the new layer, we're going to make this part white. I'm going to change my ink color to white, and in the new layer I've created, I'm going to hit fill. So now I've got a layer with the ink in white. I turn off the other one and I go into my background layer and make it black. So now I have black background with my white design on the front. It's ready to make a brush, and I save it into my camera roll. Now we're going to get out of this project and I'm going to open a new blank canvas so that once we create the brush we can experiment with what it looks like. So I hit the plus sign, we go into create, I just pick my favorite size of canvas, and there it is with the layer ready to go in my white background. So now we're going to create the brush. This is the folder that I often play around and create new brushes. So hit this plus sign way up at the top, and now we're going to select our shape, and we're going to go into our photos to retrieve that image that we just saved with the black background and the white foreground, and that's it right there. And now we're going to go into our select grain, and we're going to go right into their Pro library, and all I want is the white square because I don't want any texture to this. And we end up with our brush. So now we're going to have to make a few adjustments. So we're going to go into the stroke, and we're going to go up to the spacing and take that right up to the top, and that separates them all right out to the max. Then we're going to go back into general. And this size limits here, I usually take this up around 400%. You can kind of play with it on your own. 400 to 500%, I find I get a decent size. Then we want it to orient to iPad screen because we need it to be upright because you can read it. And then we use the stamp preview. If this was off and I go back, I just end up with this little thing here. Sometimes I end up with nothing. So if you use stamp preview, it's going to give you that one image as your example, and see how now my brush is the full size of that, just for a preview. So now I'm going to go into my colors and choose black ink, go back into my brush, and this is where I can adjust the size of the signature, and then I just tap on the screen and there's my signature. Now it's good to always have it on its own layer so that you can play around with it. You hit the transform button, you can move it around your screen. If you have your magnetic setting on and you resize it, it'll resize it proportionally so that you can make it fit the artwork that you want to put it on. So I'm going to make another layer here, and I'm going to take this right up to the max to see how big this will go. So that's the size that it'll come out. It's always best to have it big, and then you can downsize it, because if you go small and try to upsize, it will blur out. So let's get rid of that first one and work with this bigger one, and I'm going to show you how to do a watermark. So you go in and click on this blend layer, your opacity shows up, and then you can take it right down, and now you've got a watermark. So now let's experiment with this on a piece of art. So I'm going to pull up one of my mandalas that I've made. I have the signature chosen in the brush section. I have it on black ink, and I'm just going to click in the corner where I want it. Now, it should be on its own layer there, so I'm going to go back and create a new layer, because on its own layer I can transform it the way that I want. So now with the transform tool and magnetic, I can make it bigger, I can move it around, I can kind of overlap it onto my artwork, or I can downsize it, put it into any corner that it makes me happy, and that's how you put the signature on your artwork. Now the next thing you could do is you could actually make it match your artwork, and that you use the color picker tool with your finger and pick one of the colors out of your piece of art, and then there you have the signature, and it blends with your art because it's the same color. So you can pick a dark color or you could pick a lighter color as long as it kind of shows up on the background. Now here I can change the opacity, make it a little less obvious, help it blend a little more into the design. So now let's go and find one I can do a watermark on. So I'm just going to pick this simple black and white mandala design. I'm going to go back and make my ink black. I've got my signature. I'm going to max it out, create its own layer, and click right in the center. So there's my signature, but it overpowers the design. I just want a watermark. So go into your blend and take it right down in opacity as low as you'd like. And there you have a very simple watermark on the back of your drawing. Okay, so let's do a hand-drawn signature right in Procreate. This is another way you can do it. So I need a black background, so I change my background to black, and I want white ink because my brush requires black background, white foreground. So I'm going to go into my ink, and then I'm going to choose my favorite brush and resize it. And you could do this for your whole signature. It depends on what you want on your artwork. I'm just going to do my first name for the moment. Oh, you can see my lovely camera set up in that black reflection, but just ignore that. So now I'm just going to draw my first name, and that's it. It's ready for a brush. So now I have to go in and save this image into my camera roll. So I go into my wrench tool, and I go to the share, there it is, share artwork, and save it as a JPEG into my camera roll, save image. There we go. So now I can create this brush. I go into my folder where I put my new created brushes. I can move them out of there afterwards. And I hit the plus sign and select shape. We go into photos, camera roll. There's my signature. And I pull it up, and then for a grain source, we just go into that Pro library and pick that nice square white box. That's all we do. Now again, we have to change the settings, go into stroke, make the spacing to its max, go into general, and I move this up again to, somewhere in the 400 or 500 range percentage. Orient to iPad screen and use stamp preview, and there's my signature brush ready to go. So now we're going to give an experiment here. So we're going to clear that layer, change our background back to white so that now we can experiment with this signature brush. So now I've got my black ink and I've chosen the size of the brush here, and then I just click and there it is. So now it's on its own layer. I can transform it with the magnetic on. I can make it larger. I can rotate it. It's good to have the magnetic on because you really don't want to distort your signature. You want to keep the proportions right. Now let's go in here and try it on a piece of artwork. I'm going to choose this one. So I have black picked, but I think I'm going to pick a color that's in there. So I'm going to use my color picker with my finger, and I'm going to go find a nice blue. Okay, so now we're going to try it. We're just going to click in the corner and make sure I have it on its own layer. There we go. So now I can transform it. I've got it on a bit of an angle there. Oh, you have to be careful when you put it in. It got cut off here. So where it comes in, it's going to cut it off if it goes off your canvas. So I got to do that again and make sure you put it on the canvas, the whole thing, and then you can move it to where you want it after. So I'm going to downsize it, take it to the corner and rotate it a little bit so that it's there, overlapping the design a little bit. Let's try it with a lighter color from the artwork. So I'm going to go back in, let's take that backwards. I'm going to go back in, resize this down just a little bit so I don't fall off that canvas again. And I'm going to pick a light color from the artwork itself and do my little resize and just click it right in there. There it is. A little easier to say with a light color. Sometimes you need to experiment. You don't really want it to take away from your artwork, but you do want it to be seen. So you can play around with the colors. So now I can also do this. I have my original logo still saved as a brush. So I can kind of pick and choose. That's my hand-drawn one. Or I can go back to the one that I've already made and use as a regular logo that I brought in. I'm going to try making it in that light color, and I took it to the max and I stick it right in the middle. That's another way of doing it. Let's say I really wanted the logo to be what's key here, and I can also take it to the size of the canvas and I can lower the opacity to make it into a watermark, but that doesn't necessarily work with this design, and sometimes you literally have to try it and experiment and trial and error. but I could take that backwards, and I could use that in my marketing. It's kind of effective with the mandala in the background, but the same color of the signature. And again, I can take it back down in size, move it down to the corner so it just overlaps a little bit. That's kind of effective too, blends in with the artwork, but it's definitely still there. The information is in my logo. Or I could go back and I could add in just your basic black, maybe not quite so black, maybe that charcoaly color. And oops, that one's going to be cut off. Got to make sure I bring it down so it fits on the canvas and doesn't get cut off. There, so oops, it's not on its own layer. See what happens there. I have it on the same layer as the last one. So go backwards, create a new layer, and then I can put my charcoaly color one on there. Of course, I'd only have one. I wouldn't have them both on. So I'm just going to turn off the white one, and then all I have left is the charcoal. So now you know how to make a signature and put it on your artwork in Procreate, as well as turn it into a watermark. So if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to check out more of my work, you can check out the links below for my website and my blog. So have fun and go create.